start, and we're just gonna look at the thiamine and what it is, maybe deficiencies or what the symptoms might be if you have a deficiency, how you might feel if you don't have enough vitamin B1, and what you can do maybe to improve your B1 levels or improve that symptoms by taking more vitamin B1. So, as always, I wonder about things like, why is it vitamin B1? So, I went to have a look, and they say that the vitamin B vitamins, because there's a few, comes from a mix of historical discoveries, chemical structures, and traditional naming conventions. And originally, it was thought that there was only one vitamin B. But then, as research progressed in the 1900s, they discovered that there's not just only one vitamin B, but there's actually a group of different water-soluble compounds. So rather than renaming everything, they just numbered the different vitamin Bs, and like vitamin B1, 2, and 3. But there's also some of these that they removed from the list, like vitamin B4 and 5, 10, and 11, because those substances, that it was found not to be true vitamins, or they just reclassified it. And then why thiamine, the name? So the thea comes from theo, apparently, and that means it refers to the sulfur molecule that is in the compound, the sulfur atom that's in the molecule. And and then the amine part shows to the nitrogen compounding, the nitrogen containing compound. If you haven't seen it, let's see, remember, I draw a picture of the structure. It's always interesting to me. It's actually wonderful to see. So it's a pyrimidine ring that's connected by a methylene bridge to a thiazolium ring. Sorry, a cat. And then they say that the thiamine is often shown as a thiamine cation or positively charged ion. But it is often present as a salt, thiamine hydrochloride or a hydrochloride. So it's very interesting to know that thiamine is converted to thiamine pyrophosphate. It's TPP for short, to its active coenzyme form. And TPP, or thiamine pyrophosphate, is essential for converting carbohydrates into energy and for normal nerve function. It helps enzymes to remove carbon dioxide from certain molecules during glucose metabolism, making it indispensable for energy production, especially in the brain and nervous system. And then, it is said that thiamine is a cofactor. So what that means, it's a non-protein helper molecule that an enzyme needs to work properly. So it binds to the enzyme at the active site, and it assists the chemical reaction either by stabilizing intermediates, carrying chemical groups, or providing essential atoms. And that can be metal ions or organic molecules like thiamine pyrophosphate. Without its cofactor, the enzyme either cannot catalyze the reaction or does so much more slowly. So the cofactor is very important for a lot of the chemical reactions that take place in our bodies. It's usually the reaction goes from one to the other, and then there's an enzyme that helps the process. So the cofactor helps the enzyme to do its work properly. And then I think sometimes we forget what RDA stands for. It's the recommended daily amount that we need, that we actually need to survive. It's the recommended daily allowance, I think. Rather, sorry. So for vitamin B1, according to Patrick Holford, he said that it is 1.4 milligrams. So it's not really what you need to have your optimum daily amount. So an average diet, taking the recommended, or if you take into account the recommended daily allowance, is usually 2 milligrams. But people that have a good diet will take in about 5 milligrams. The optimum daily allowance is about 35 milligrams. So there's a shortfall of about 30 milligrams. So it's worth supplementing. Yeah. And thiamine also works at another area, and it's important for the production of certain neurotransmitters, or actually the neurotransmitter acetylcholine, which is involved in memory, proper mental functioning. And if we don't have enough, if we have a chronic thiamine deficiency, it can result in a form of dementia. And we'll talk about that now. They also say that an estimate of about 33 to 57% of elderly individuals are thought to be deficient in vitamin B1. It is implicated in the reduction of memory and mental function, commonly experienced in the elderly people. Okay, so you can have a look and see where it works, where it does its job. I want to get my papers in order. Okay, so where does it work? So there's 6 places in the brain and the nerves, as we also just had a look. It's a cofactor, as we said, that it's a cofactor for to generate certain neurotransmitters, but also it's also needed to produce energy. And then the heart and circulation. It supports myocardial energy production. And also deficiency. The muscles, it's needed for ATP synthesis during contraction. Red blood cells, it drives I'm going to have a look at that as well, the pentose phosphate pathway for NADPH and ribose production measured via electrocyte transcriptase. And then gastrointestinal, it also has an effect in the gastrointestinal tract. It maintains gut motility. It maintains gut motility and mucosal integrity. And then the metabolism overall, it acts as a cofactor for pyruvate dehydrogenase, alpha-ketoglutarate dehydrogenase, and transketalase, linking carbohydrate breakdown to the Krebs cycle and energy production. And then, how do we feel if we don't have enough vitamin B1? Unusually tired, low energy levels, that doesn't improve with rest. Pins and needles in your extremities, especially feet and legs, numbness, burning, muscle weakness or cramps, especially in the calves, poor appetite, nausea, unexplained weight loss, mood changes, irritability, depression, trouble concentrating, dizziness or a fast pounding heartbeat when standing up. I think that's in more severe cases. Swelling in the legs, shortness of breath in the and yeah, when the heart function is affected, and then unsteady walking, clumsiness, if the nerves or the cerebellum are involved. And then if it's severe, you can have confusion, double vision, memory blackouts even. And then deficiency. So we've looked at how you're going to feel, but a little bit more about the deficiency. Classic deficiency they call beriberi. Okay, so it's caused by a lack of vitamin B1, a nutritional disorder that impairs energy metabolism and nerve function. So it's mainly energy metabolism and nerve function. And it manifests in three primary syndromes. The one is beriberi, number one. It's a classic deficiency. I call it wet beriberi and dry beriberi. So wet beriberi is when the heart is involved, cardiovascular involvement, and there's a high output heart failure, edema, and shortness of breath. And then dry beriberi is when you have peripheral neuropathy that comes with symmetric numbness, tingling, muscle wasting, and difficulty walking. Now, the peripheral neuropathy is usually, or it's often linked to diabetes. And then number 3 is the Wernicke encephalopathy. Sorry, my Afrikaans. The Wernicke encephalopathy. It's acute and it's often alcohol related. I'm gonna let's see. It's a triad of ophthalmoplegia, which means eye muscle paralysis, and ataxia. Ataxia is a neurological sign that describes impaired coordination, balance, or precision of voluntary movements, and confusion. And then untreated, it can progress to Korsakoff syndrome, and I think then they call it the Wernicke-Korsakoff syndrome. And that is when you have chronic memory loss, and another word I've learned today, confabulation. Confabulation. It means unintentional production of distorted memories that the person believes to be true. Yeah, so it's basically making up memories that's not real. But it's not, just remember it's not lying. This person it's they're just not themselves. And then number 4 is infantile beriberi. When breastfed infants of deficient mothers have a deficient mother. So the baby also has a deficiency in the vitamin B1 then, and it can cause a rapid onset of heart failure, cyanosis, and seizures. And I think somewhere else I also read that it can have it can also be linked to babies that I think sits, the babies that die in their cradle can also be linked to that. Or in their beds. Saying right now. And then, okay, so the risk factors for deficiency includes chronic alcoholism, hyperemesis gravidarum. Weer, maybe I must find different words, but basically it is persistent nausea and vomiting during pregnancy. Hyperemesis, I know emesis is nausea and vomiting. Gravidarum. Okay. And then bariatric surgery is people that go for a gastric bypass surgery. Sometimes they make the stomach smaller, or sites of absorption like the small or large intestine is bypassed, especially probably the small intestine. And the absorption of vitamin B1 isn't what it needs to be. And it can also, if you get that done, you can maybe be very nauseous and vomit a lot, and absorption isn't what it needs to be. There can also be bacterial overgrowth if you went for these operations, and the bacterial overgrowth can consume the thiamine that you have in your body, or probably there in your gastrointestinal system. And then some people have to get IV nutrition, and some of these nutritional supplements might not have thiamine as a supplement, although I believe that the companies and people are aware of it. And then diets high in polished white rice. I don't know about you, but I usually buy the white rice. Recently, I bought some brown rice, so now, my opens our eyes. And then, the diagnosis, if you really want to maybe just not buy a vitamin and see if you feel better, it's especially if you have symptoms that are severe, then you'll have to go and see a doctor, and then they can test your thiamine levels, or they also test the following thing: the erythrocyte transketolase activity. They test that. And the treatment, if it's severe, they're probably going to give it intravenously. We're not gonna do that ourselves, but it's about 200 to 500 milligrams 3 times a day for 2 to 3 days. And then I also think, or somewhere else I read that then you can go on with 100 milligrams a day for about 2 weeks, and then from there on, just 10 to 50 milligrams per day. As we also said that, according to that the book that I read, they said about 30 milligrams that we might need daily. It probably depends on if you have a deficiency. And then and it's important to notice that early repletion prevents irreversible neurological damage. I think in places where people are really struggling to have good diets, these things are really important. But we sometimes forget that even in a busy life, when we run from one place to the next, or you just buy convenience foods, we sometimes don't realize that these foods aren't rich in the necessary vitamins and minerals that we need. So it's good to take that into consideration as well. And yeah, I wondered again why you'd test this to do the diagnosis. Of course, I always wonder a bit more about the erythrocyte transketolase. Why do they measure that? So they say that you measure that activity because it is a functional assay that reveals how much thiamine the red cell enzyme actually has. Transketolase needs thiamine pyrophosphate, as we also said in the beginning, I think, needs thiamine pyrophosphate as a cofactor. When thiamine is low, basal erythrocyte transcriptase activity falls. Okay, so and then if you add an axis of TPP, thiamine pyrophosphate, in vitro and remeasuring it, the activity gives the TPP effect. And that gives you a percentage stimulation. So they use that. I think they give you the thiamine via IV probably, and then they see what the effect is. So if the effect is less than 15 to 20%, then your thiamine store is adequate. But if the TPP effect is between 15 and 25%, there's a marginal deficiency. And if the TPP effect is more than 25%, then there's a clear biochemical deficiency. And it's also, they use this way because the turnover of the erythrocyte transketolase is slow. So the test reflects the thiamine status over several weeks, making it more stable than a single plasma thiamine level. So it's a more reliable way of doing the test. And then I wondered again, the transketolase, I wondered where it worked, in which areas it worked, because it needs the thiamine. So I wondered, and then I went and have a look. I went and had a look. So it catalyzes the transketolase. It works in two different reversible non-oxidative reactions of the pentose phosphate pathway, and that is within the red blood cells. And they describe it as the pentose phosphate pathway. They describe as a side branch of glucose metabolism. So the two reversible non-oxidative reactions are where it makes NADPH. It's a special electron carrier used to keep red blood cells and other cells safe from oxidative damage and to build fats and other molecules. Okay, so it's a special electron carrier used to keep red blood cells and other cells safe from oxidative damage and to build fats and other molecules. So it's quite important. Sometimes we don't realize it, I think, if you go and look a little bit closer. And then the other pathway, or the other reaction, which is also part of the pentose phosphate pathway, is that it makes ribose 5-phosphate. This is the sugar that is the building block for DNA, RNA, and energy carriers like ATP. So another important place that it works. Then, who is most affected by a deficiency? So people that take in, and I think it's most of us, but that take in a lot of carbohydrates and refined sugars, basically. Diabetics is a lot of the time they're affected. People that take alcohol on a regular basis. As we said, those people that had a gastric bypass. If you are on antacids, it can have an effect because if you don't have enough acid in your stomach, it can also affect the absorption. Antibiotics and caffeine. So people that take a lot of coffee and tea, and that is also a lot of us, I believe. And then, as I said, that a lot of the foods that we eat, all of us, foods are pasteurized. I know for our own good mostly, but still, it damages the vitamin B1 content in the food. And then, how can we improve the deficiency? Well, we had to look at if it's a real severe deficiency, then you going to have to go probably to the hospital or the doctor. They're going to give you an IV supplementation, otherwise 100 milligrams daily for 1 to 2 weeks, and then the maintenance dose of about 10 to 50 milligrams per day. It's important to address the underlying cause. So, if you eat a lot of refined sugars or carbs, you take a lot of coffee or drink a lot of tea, just for the caffeine, or if you take in large amounts of alcohol, then you're gonna have to do something about that. Yeah, if you are, or if you know somebody, or if you are somebody that has to get the parenteral nutrition, make sure that it does contain thiamine. And you must also make sure that malabsorption is treated. If you're not absorbing vitamins and minerals well, it can have detrimental effects for your health. Treating celiac disease, or adjusting post-bariatric surgery regimens, or speaking to your doctor if things isn't going good. And then dietary measures, of course, emphasizing thiamine-rich foods, like whole grains, legumes, nuts, seeds, and nutritional yeast, and limiting white rice and highly processed carbohydrates, of course. And then it's important that if you have a severe deficiency, to monitor and follow up so that the doctor can again test your erythrocyte transcrestulase activity after 1 to 2 weeks, and then continue with your supplementation until the risk factors are eliminated. And that is vitamin B1 for today. I hope you've learned something. I think I have. And I think if we go through all of this vitamins and minerals and where it works and how it works, I think we'll think twice before we buy the donut or the the bad stuff. yeah, it's not that we have to leave it out totally, but yeah, from my own experience, I know that sometimes I just overdo it and it's not necessary. So yeah, and I'm also just, it's important for me to talk about this, not only for my own health and because I'm trying to improve, but it's also what I see around me. And I also like to uh, share what I'm learning so that other people will also um, see the importance behind it. And yeah, maybe let's go the extra mile to know a little bit more so that maybe we can be the one for our families to help them so that they also know what is better for their health. Because we love them, we can be an example to them. I hope that you have a wonderful day. Thank you very much for joining. And yeah, go well. Have a good weekend.